Yes, London. Yes, London. It's the doctor's surgery. Welcome, welcome. We interrupt the music. As you know, we should have been on air since 8 o'clock. We're running a bit late. We apologize for all the people that was getting into the groove of the music, that we've interrupted it in mid flow. But we had to. You know how it is. If you are listening, welcome. Surgery each and every Tuesday from 8 when we get here, I should say, until 11 a.m. Britain's first Black Current Affairs show. I apologize deeply for the tardiness, but it is what it is. It is what it is. If you want to watch live, you can go onto YouTube and search for the Doctor's Surgery and filter through channels. We will be right at the top. When you filter through channels, you will see it right there, Doctor's Surgery streaming live. Follow us if you haven't already started to subscribe and follow us. There's quite a few videos up right now on the Doctor's Surgery YouTube channel. It's Omega FM broadcasting live out there. You know, 4.1 Omega, the tune in radio on omegafmradio.co.uk, on the mixcloud.com/, Omega DJ, and on YouTube also on Omega London TV Presents. I'm not sure if that's just a continuous live stream. I'm not sure how that's done. But the specific show on Omega today, the Doctor's Surgery, is broadcasting live by our own YouTube channel, the Doctor's Surgery YouTube channel. So if you are at home and you want to see us live in the studio, you can give us a call and you can see us right there with the big Omega sign behind us, broadcasting live to the world. Um, what is this show about if you're a first time listener? Like I said, it's Britain's first Black Current Affairs show. We review all the things that have been pertinent about us in the news over the past week, and we have a general discussion about it. We invite the listening audience to call in because it's a show about dialogue. It's not about I myself lecturing you, the listening audience. It's more opposed to we all having an active discussion to come to a resolution or get a better grasp of what's going on so that we can eradicate and get rid of the nuances that seem to infiltrate and keep us down through how the media does its broadcasting, its negative, subtly negative approaches. I want to send a shout out to Pablo over there in Acme. And the reason I'm sending a shout out to Pablo over there in Acme is because I got a recording of Pablo on LBC chatting to one of the LBC presenters. And the LBC presenter was staunch set in his bigoted, whether it's consciously racist view or whether it's subconsciously racist view of opposing the statement Black Lives Matter. Now, I'm not on the bandwagon of Black Lives Matter, but I do support any cause for Black people. So I do support Black Lives Matter because it is a cause for Black people that Black people are dear to, and I do follow and grasp the message that they're pushing. So when you hear the phrase "All Lives Matter" and all these other things that the racists or the bigoted or the prejudiced want to put across to kind of detract away from the true message of Black Lives Matter. It was refreshing hearing Pablo give a emphatic and heartfelt breakdown of what the Black Lives Matter stood for, and how and he was able to eloquently and succinctly break down the differences between the nuances between racism in the United States and racism in the UK. Because one of the things that I always say is that in the UK we're in a better position than in most westernized white countries. However, that doesn't negate the fact that these things take place in Britain in such a subtle way that it has to be highlighted how subtle racism is in England or the UK. It's such a difficult task to prove it because they do it in with such a subtle approach that it always impacts us in a way where we feel that there's not much we can do. But thanks to the new generation of youths who seemingly have their supporters of friends that don't see color or per se do see color but respect color, whichever position you want to sit in with that one. Um, it's a new day and time that we have to give a round of applause to the youths, and we have to appreciate their militancy and their lack of fear in their push to be seen as individuals and as human beings, for lack of a better word of putting it, as opposed to be seen as someone that is not on an equal footing or subhuman. They refuse to hold that position and they refuse to bow. They will look you in your eyes and they will knock you out if you approach them in the wrong way. And it's a round of applause to the youth for taking that militant position, because that is in essence needed. And we also want to thank those of different persuasions. I don't want to go into ethnic groupings as if it's like a nationality thing, but everyone that stands firm with your black friends, I want to send a round of applause for understanding um, the, the difficulties currently faced and standing side by side. And for those that don't, shame on you. Why aren't you? So I just wanted to send that shout out there this morning before we roll on into the show. Um, that is definitely something that I wanted to highlight in what is being said. What are we going to be discussing this week? Well, there's been so much to discuss in the media over the past week. But one of the things that I wanted to kind of highlight before I jump into it, though, are you listening? Is anyone out there? You know how we do our little test each week? Give us a call to let us know that you're listening, or give us a drop call or something. Let us know that you're listening. Is anyone out there? The number to call to let me know that you're listening so I can jump into the crux and the depth of the show is 0753 996 8143. I'll give it again. 0753 996 8143. One more time. 0753 996 8143. That's the text or the call in line, just to let me know that you're listening so that we can jump into the crux of the show, and we do appreciate you taking time out to let us know that you're listening, because it gives us the zest and the enthusiasm to jump into the depths of the show. But as we've got a caller and the producer is taking the call, one of the things that I wanted to, the key thing that I wanted to highlight today were the numbers in and around the COVID-19 pandemic. Now we know that they say when everything is grouped, it's either 2-1 or 4-1. Correct me if my figures are correct, but I think the last figures I heard was 4-1 when all the BME groups were grouped together with gender and so forth, that black people were 4 times more likely to die of COVID-19 as opposed to their white counterparts. Now, I'm not a great mathematician, but if the death rate is, let's say, 40,000 plus, I'm not quite sure where it is at the moment, but 40,000 plus. And it's a 4-1 ratio. So you're telling me that some 32,000, is that the figures that we're looking at? Because I haven't heard anyone say it. Are they saying that there's some 32,000 black people that have died from this? Or am I mistakenly treating it as just black and white. So if the figure might be a bit less if we count in the other groups inside of those figures and the statistics. But nonetheless, that's over 20,000 people, even if at a conservative figure, over 20,000 black people have died. Is that correct? Because when we think about it, and the reason why I'm saying that in the UK alone, if over 20, if these statistics are correct in my mind, and I would love to hear from someone that knows a little bit better about it than myself. As I'm just a lowly radio presenter right now, but I'm a thinker, and I want to encourage everyone to be thinkers themselves. And if it's a 4-to-1 ratio, I understand if it was black and white only, black British, white British only, then it would be over 32,000 deaths would be black people. But yet we have other BME groups, as they classify us, in the mix. So we have to use a conservative figure. We have a life caller? We have to use a conservative figure to say, right, all right, let's work it at around 50%. And so that at least 50% of the deaths have been black, then if that is correct. Because if it's 4-to-1, the other groups are like 2-to-1 and so forth, etc. And when you add up all the figures, it's going to be roughly around 20,000 black people that have died from this in the UK alone. When we look at the United States, it's going to be some similar high ratio that have died from COVID-19. And why am I bringing this up at this point? Because it a few weeks ago, and I've been thinking about it and looking at it, but I was hesitant in discussing it, not because any worrisome reason, but because I didn't want to scare people more so than anything else. But when you look at it, let's look at it logically. In the UK, you have a certain amount of black people, but it's a majority white country. In the United States, we know that if we take other BME groups out of the mix, it's again another majority white country, because with the other BME groups, it's roughly a 50-50 ratio. And in all these countries, these westernized countries, including South America, or let me rephrase it, in all the countries we have a majority white control government and people, where you have COVID-19, and you have a high proportion of black people, you have a high proportion of deaths, a higher proportion of deaths in the black people. But yet in the black countries, you have very little, if not any deaths. So that's leading me to think in a way to say, hold on, are these deaths taking place amongst the black people? Are they disease related? Or are they related to the fact of poor care, or even something a bit more nefarious, where people may have been, taken out simply because they wanted to boost the stats, or they didn't care because there might have been some financial links to the death rates or the numbers of diagnosed and the people. We have to really start to take apart, why is it that the deaths amongst black people is so high in white orientated countries? Why? But yet they said, over 250 million people was going to be affected in Africa, and la di da da, and that was Bill Gates and his devil wife, right? That came out with that stuff. And I have no reservation to call Mr. and Mrs. Devil anything apart from Mr. and Mrs. Devil. Yeah. No, they were, and now she's come out. Melinda Gates has come out and said, okay, when there is a treatment, I'm not going to use the other word. When there's a treatment for this, black people should get it first. I have to laugh, and it's not a laugh as in humor, but I have to laugh in the sense that Come on, people, think about it. You know, I didn't want to start on a somber note, but we have to kind of think about it. We haven't got these bodies to essentially do autopsies on to see how these people died. But yet, you have to kind of start having a good solid think about it. Why did so much people die in white Western countries, more so that are black, more so than in 100% practically black countries, where the numbers hardly hit into double figures? I'm saying in the UK alone, it was 20,000. That's more than the whole of the continent of Africa added up. Something doesn't sit well in the midst of all of that. And you know, I wanted to just throw it out there so that people could have a think and bear that in mind, you know, because one of the things that I've been highlighting on the show over recent weeks is, should we not start to think about relocating out of here? Everything that we attempt here seems to be, I mean, I love what I see at the moment in terms of the common unity with the black and white standing together. But we all saw the news last week or a few days ago where the far right groups were, out showing their true colors. And I can't accuse every white person of being like these far right racists, because they were condemned throughout by the government and by the media and all. But nonetheless, we're still in a situation where that is overt and blatant racism. But yet we're still in a situation where we're in a country where racism is truly subtle. We've had a police commissioner who said in the line of duty she would refuse to take the knee. Granted, but and the instruction would also be for officers not to do so. In a time on day where it's a push towards community and understanding, it is surprising that the staunch position is to still to still keep it them and us, as opposed to recognize the the ongoing to recognize the ongoing I'm struggling to find the word, issues and problems that we still face as a people that are brought on us by the police. The police might not be essentially choking out and strangling people in the UK in public. We know about the tasing and other things as such. They're not essentially shooting people in public, but we know that there's deaths in custody, a high proportion of deaths in custody. Unfortunately, these ain't caught on camera to see how it took place. Or if they have been, we haven't seen the videos. But we do know that how the police operate, which is becoming more and more and more of a trend, is that they operate through attacking those, especially those career-minded people, whether they are reformed people with criminal records, or whether they are people that have never had a criminal record. They are attacking well-to-do black people that are in prominent positions, that are growing in stature within the community, and that are doing things positive within the community. And it's usually those that are in black focus and black orientated relationships, and I have to say it as such. So these targeted attacks are quite specific, because not only do they undermine the development and the growth of the individuals, they also undermine the structure of the black family. And this is how the police are now operating. These things need to be said. So when you have a police commissioner, and if you all don't know what I'm talking about, the police commissioner for the Metropolitan Police, what's her name? Is it Clarissa or Crusader? Crusader Dick, head of the Metropolitan Police. You know that she's the head of the Metropolitan Police. Her name is Crusader Dick. You know, so we have to start looking at these things, and we have to wonder, why do they hate black men so much? Is there a reason why there's such a staunch hate? And it's not just black men, we know it's black women. And I shouldn't just make it sound like it's a black man thing, because we know that the most prominent and consistent attack on anybody has always been the prominent and consistent attack on the black woman. We we can all recognize that. But in terms of brutality and physical and impact in terms of career wise, that's predominantly towards the black man. We know that there's a female officer. I don't know the fullness of the case, that where her sister sent her some images that weren't appropriate, and she didn't essentially look at them. But for the fact that she received them on her phone, she was arrested, and there's a whole heap of hoopla in relation to that now going on with her being thrown out of the force and all those things. So her whole career has been, you know, on completely unraveled, her life's work, all the good work. So again, all these things are thrown under the bus at a specific time. We had a couple of callers. What were they saying?
They're listening.
All right. Yes, callers, you're listening. You know, and I mean, if you want to take part, remember the number. If you got anything to add, I'd love to hear your take on these points that I'm making, because it's essential. It's becoming more and more essential for us to, and understand what I mean. I don't want to sound like I'm rambling. Oh, follow what I'm saying to you. We know that everyone looked down. If we go back 20, 30, 40 years, the Chinese people were just seen as cheap laborers. That's how they were seen predominantly, and how they were presented in the media. In the US, they were presented as very unscrupulous business people that were always into something nefarious in the movies, right? They were never seen or portrayed as nothing positive. However, with the rise of China, so much so in the last 30, it has instilled a certain level of pride in the Chinese community. So much so, and the positive is it's a rise in pride. The negative is that pride has now made them, seems to have made them feel like they are now the new white, and they can also trample and walk over the black man, which we've also seen a rise in hatred from Chinese to black people. Why, I don't know. I'm not sure when this racial war with hate from the Chinese to the black man started, or whether it's because of they've gone through their own embarrassing moments of colonization and subjugation from the West. They feel that to better um, so that people see them in a better light, they have to make someone else look in a worse light. So they try to throw dirt or disparaging comments and actions towards us, as if we are the gutter people. So we also need an emblem of greatness, an emblem of pride, because we are already a proud people. So what would happen if that pride was able to have what's it called, a magnifying glass, or we were able to magnify that pride through a magnifying glass? That's what I'm trying to achieve by having a concentration. And if we take it back to the movie, what's that movie called, Black Panther, for example, we had so much black pride for a fictional version of what I'm talking about. There was a massive amount of black pride for a fictional country and a fictional way of being. You know, there was such a rise in the people were dressing up to go to the cinema, and that was fiction. So what would it be if we really had that jewel in the crown, where we could look towards a black country or an area where we could say black pride? I mean, we all are proud of our own countries in our own way, whether it's somewhere in the Caribbean, you know, or whether it be Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, wherever you're from in the Caribbean. Uh, you want me to say Barbados?
Right.
Barbados is not in the Caribbean, as I was reminded quite a few times. So whether you're an Atlantean, you know what I mean? Because I was once corrected to say Barbados is not in the Caribbean; it's in the Atlantic Ocean. And I actually went on Google because I didn't believe that. And Barbados is not a Caribbean island. But nonetheless, whether it's Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, Dominica, the Caribbean, we all know that the jewel of black pride, I mean, fortunately and unfortunately, fortunately for pride within myself, the jewel for black pride for a long time was that little tiny island they call Jamaica. You know, because we as a nation were the first to call for the freedom of Nelson Mandela and froze out. And even though Nelson turned out to be a traitor to the cause, nonetheless, we as a nation were the first to stop trading with a country to kind of show resilience and resistance. You know, Jamaica has been at the forefront of black liberation and black struggles in its verbalization, whether it's through political or musical means. And perhaps the reason, and I'm not saying that it's because Jamaica was great, perhaps the reason why it was able to do that was because it didn't have someone's knees essentially on its neck up until the 80s or the late 70s, when we know the CIA got involved in the political change in the island, which then brought in a lot of uproar, which some say led to the death of Bob Marley. Okay, so there's a lot there to unravel, unwind, and unpick. But we know that there was a knee on the necks of those countries in Africa. We know the French colonies, there's a knee on their neck. It's only recently a lot of people are finding out that for certain colonies in Africa that were owned by the French, for certain political things to happen, they have to have the approval of Paris. And likewise, we know Britain had perhaps first refusal or the right to say with a lot of things that happened with Commonwealth Africa. So there was a knee on the neck of those countries. And perhaps there still are knees on the neck of those countries, including Jamaica, that we are not seeing. But yet, I still feel that whilst whatever we do here, we're now, there's a lot of push with this new movement of the youth that I am automatically supporting, whether it be Blackout Tuesday. I'm not sure what they aim to achieve with that, but I will support them with it. And it's because I can't see that there isn't a vision. So I support their cause. Or whether it's the push that was discussed a few weeks ago, 2, 3 weeks back on this, where a caller said, why don't we use our economic might and refrain from involvement in their economic system for at least 1 week every so often until there's a change. We know that the UK economy is on the edge at the moment. We don't know which way it might go, whether it's going to be a V shaped recovery or whether it's going to fall off the edge into a deep depression for the next decade. We know the last decade it was in a deep recession. Now they're talking about a deep depression, so it's meant to be far worse than what it's been since 2010. And it's surprising when you say the last decade and you say 2010, right? Because it feels like 2010 in parts, if you're at a certain age was just the other day. So there's a lot to unravel and a lot to unpick. But what are you doing? Are You don't have to say, because one of our biggest problems is that we talk too much about what we're doing. But what is good is to encourage to do so and do it in your own subtle way. So are you building up the home countries? What are you doing to build up the home countries? Is every bit of your wealth in the UK? Think about what I'm saying. Is every bit of your wealth in the UK? Why? Is that wise? Is that the best course of action? Some people say Africa is a graveyard. A friend of mine reminds me all the time that to say that's a statement that was made by Putin a few years ago, because it was seen that most African leaders and prominent Africans, they would take their money, invest it in Europe, lived La Viva Loco, their life in Europe and the West, and then when they die, they get buried in Africa. So Africa is nothing more than a graveyard. They don't want to invest their money. They themselves, as Africans, don't want to invest back into that national pride they have. They take and took their money into European banks, whether it's French banks, British banks, American banks, or wherever they're placing their money outside of Africa. And as you know, if you didn't know, the institution in which, or where you place your money, the institution takes that money and they're able to lend and make great profits on that money. So if Africans aren't, what if wealthy Africans aren't lodging their money into those African banks, then those African banks won't grow as much as the institutions where those money are being placed. We know China has an upper hand in the sense that all these Chinese businesses, Chinese banks, they are backed essentially by the Chinese state. So every time you compete with a Chinese entity, you're competing with the Chinese state, the people on a whole, not the individual. And we cannot fault the Chinese for being, I guess, wise and smart in their rise, because if that's how they have to be to succeed and stay on top within this current day and time, then they have to do what they have to do for themselves. But what are we doing for ourselves? Are we consistently going to be sitting here asking for the crumbs off the table, or are we going to start realizing that they will never give something to you that will impact on them negatively, but more so you have to take it. We got a live caller. Caller, you live. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, hi, doctor. Is it doctor?
Yes, the doctor surgery. How you doing?
Doctor said, yeah. I'm okay, yeah, I called last week, but I just called to say this week, that I was just going through some of my messaging on YouTube, when, sometimes when you give feedback, and you get feedback as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just calling to say that, that you was talking at first about repatriating, moving back home to the African, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was reading my stuff while he was talking, anyway, I was noticing that most of the thing I was reading, and it was a lot I was reading, people was mostly considering going back to Ghana,
Mm-hmm.
as to do with Africa, rather than any other African country. That is almost like Ghana is Africa, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Now, my concern about that was, one of the things I was asking myself, and I do ask one person as well, is that if people been doing their research, and they not only the history of Ghana, but what they said that history repeat itself, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that, like I said, just let me out there and then you can have a conversation. Is that no, Ghana was one of the places that had one of the worst slavery, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as I have researched that Ghana has get into the slavery thing over the gold rush, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because they was trying to save the gold rush as well, because it was at the time of the gold rush that Ghana get into the slavery selling thing, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, what I'm saying is, if you look at Ghana today, yeah, Ghana has still not really changed his way about in deal with the West, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just look at just the other day. The people in Ghana had to protest against the government giving America permission to get just bring in two without any checks and all of that,
Mm-hmm.
and to fly from Ghana base to anywhere in Africa to bomb people.
Mm-hmm.
Have you not seen that? Was that the news as well?
I haven't seen it, but I heard about it.
I didn't see it because I had it on my YouTube as well. But
Mm-hmm.
it's just one of those things I'm saying that, as I say, history repeats itself. So I was just wondering, though, why so much of us always do this like to go to Ghana? What it is with Ghana? You might be able to tell me now what it is with Ghana, why it's the energy is pulling everybody there. And I kind of guess that there's a setup going on as well. So I don't know, I could be wrong. I just think differently. So,
Mm-hmm.
anyway, that's what I was trying to just get. So, yeah, you can conversation that with me.
No worries. I will do.
Thank
Thank you. Yeah, so with that's a pertinent question by the caller. From my experience, Africa is seen by the older generation, let's say my mother's generation and older, as a volatile continent. And as it's seen as a volatile continent, it means that stability there, people worry about stability there because it's not yesterday that and perhaps British people and Americans have started to relocate back to Africa. This has been an ongoing thing for a generation, where you have people relocating back to Africa, back into the fold. And a lot of them have gone back to countries that during that time ended up in the midst of deep rooted civil wars. They got caught up in these things. So perhaps they lost all their investments or they lost everything, or these civil wars, in some cases, civil wars, they cost lives. As such, when you look at the continent of Africa, you have a lot of places that were deemed extremely volatile. And Ghana, in that mix, is seen as one of the least volatile areas for that type of impact. It's seen as a very calm and easygoing place, and that's one in terms of volatility on the continent. Then you also have the midst of crime and violence. Again, Ghana is seen as a place where crime and violence in that sense is at more moderate, lower levels, especially when it's compared in. I've never been to either, so I can only speak from the impression that's been given by the media and general social discussions. So I mean not to offend. So when you see and hear about countries like Nigeria in the past, it was never anything positive. It was always that you would get robbed and so forth. Similar to comments that you would hear about Jamaica. You get robbed. This could happen. That could happen. People were kidnapping. All kind of crazy stuff like that. Again, Ghana was never seen in such light. Now, we are our own worst enemies. And the reason I've always said that is because when something happens to us, we tend to, again, just march and protest and, peaceful this, peaceful that, rather than demanding and taking justice. You know, it's the I don't I'm of the view that we shouldn't ask for what ours, just take it and do what you're doing. But again, you know, I'm just a person. But the point I say that to say this, you know, in a lot of the countries where the volatility are or the high crime rate, we're doing and propagating that amongst ourselves. If we take Jamaica, for example, there's a lot of British people from Jamaica that would love to go home and retire, but they are scared. They are so scared of going home because for that reason that they're viewed as if they're Santa Claus. You know, they themselves are the gifts to these criminals. And it doesn't mean that it's always going to happen, but because there's that risk factor, they are scared to do so. So, in a sense, we have given ourselves that negative imagery for those people from Jamaica. You know, we've placed ourselves in that situation. And the ethos and the backstory of these things, they need to be changed, but they can only change through positive action. You know, where people can see their retirement funds or their retirement times being happily spent in these countries. And a lot of people do. A lot of people do spend their happy retirements in these countries. You know, it's just unfortunate there's so much little negative stories that keep people away. But from as I say, my experience, Ghana is seen as one of those places that you get very little of that kind of negativity coming from it. You can have a peaceful retirement. So that's another factor. And there's also other schemes and ventures that have been mentioned on the reparations front that also promote Ghana to the forefront. So it'll be good for people to have a look at it to see what does have to offer a returning resident, someone from the Americas or the Caribbean, that's looking to come there and invest or to retire. It's an interesting read when you see the positive comments. Text message reads, "Good morning. Thank you for such a brilliant show. However, I have been having such difficulties listening while traveling from Bush to Croydon. The reception is so the reception is bad. No matter, keep going. Blessing and love to all from Ivy." Thank you very much. Is that Sister Ivy? You know, thank you very much. You know, we appreciate the a positive message. Good morning, just tuned in, listening, Grace. That's from earlier. Thanks, Grace. You know, text. This is the phone or texting line 0753-996-8143. I'll give it again 0753-996-8143. I'll give it one more time 0753-996-8143. That's the text or the calling line. It's the doctor's surgery. You know, we do it each and every Tuesday from 8 a.m. until 11 a.m. Britain's first Black Current Affairs show, where we do our best to tackle the nuances that are going on out there in the media. We look at all the issues that have taken place over the past week and we address them and we address them, as we go along. Shout out to Sister Ivy and thank you for listening. Keep listening, Sister Ivy. The new shop looks good. The new shop looks good. Is it down there in Wheelsden, Sister Ivy? Someone sent me a video of the new shop recently. It looks good. So if you all don't know, there's a where's the address? Where's the address? Management might tell me off for free promotion, but he's got to tell me off. Let me give the good Sister Ivy some promotion here. Where's the address? 221 High Road, Wheelsden, NW10, the new shop. Have a look. The new what's it called? DZ shop down there. Am I correct, Sister Ivy? Let me know. I don't want to say the wrong thing, you know. Okay, so yeah, the program yesterday wasn't myself for the help out with the program you had on yesterday that ended at 2 p.m. about Moors of you and I. That wasn't our show. That wasn't my show. I'm not quite sure. I think that show might be by another presenter. Um, that was once associated with me, but that we went down different paths a long time ago. So I'm not quite sure what was done yesterday. So I'm independent of that show. Text message reads: Give out Omega website side plus back businesses in Northwest. Okay, so the Omega website will highlight black businesses in the Northwest area. It's www.omegafmradio.uk. You know, the Omega website does advertise black businesses. Okay, so www.omegafmradio.co.uk. Okay, so and like I said, check out the DJ shop down there in Wheelsden. Support our black businesses. Saying that, as I said, we're Britain's first black currency. Um, One of the things that I wanted to kind of hit a current affairs matter. We know that Mr. Lloyd's Grocery has been closed down, and that's up there in the Alston area side of town. One of the only black Caribbean grocery stores, black-owned Caribbean grocery stores in the area, and I find it a bit unscrupulous that after the overpricing of the other store that's and I'm going to say that's Asian owned, that was closed down for a couple of weeks. It's as if the authorities felt that the black man's business was too much thriving for them to close it down now for 3 months. So you close down a store that was overcharging people and brutalizing people's pocket during a time of scare and pandemic and national worry and financial crisis. You gave them 2 weeks, and then you gave a quote to the sign on the door for antisocial behavior, which is if someone's outside my shop, I can't control what they're doing. But anyway, you give them 3 months. Nonetheless, I think the punishment does not fit the crime, especially for one of the only in the area, in the Alston area, black owned shops that are supported by a lot of black folks. All these things we have to kind of to sound out. No one ain't sounding it out, so I'm gonna sound it out. Not because I'm trying to play hero, but I'm just kind of flagging it so that people are aware of these things. Okay, so right, so going back into the show, the number again, I'll give it out. I'd love to hear your take on it, on what I'm saying, because I've been going on about it over the past few weeks, and that's because this is still where we are at this point in time, where these factors are still rearing their heads. They're still popping up left, right, and center, where it's non-stop in our faces that there's. Okay, 1 second. Do we have a list of the black-owned shops, please? I think on the Omega FM radio, that's what was said, that there are a list of shops. www.omegafmradio.co.uk. They do advertise a lot of the black businesses in and around. If there are a few black shops, Caribbean grocery shops that around the area that I'm aware of, let me know. I'm looking for sponsorship, so I'll big up your shop anyway. You know what I mean? So I give you some free advertising, and then you start sponsor the show. Yeah. Each one hand can clap. We need two hands. But so I'm looking for sponsorships for the show. So text message reads zero. Sorry, then the text or the phone line 0753 996 8143. I'll give it again 0753 996 8143. So back on topic, the fact that in the news is COVID-19 for the last few months. And be it that it's COVID-19 for the part. I'm not going to go into American politics. We don't live in America, even though yes, the saying goes, if America sneezes, the world catches a cold. I do follow that. I do grasp what that means, and I am very interested in American politics. But it's not a current affairs that's currently impacting on us right now here in the UK per se. Away again, with the exception of the George Floyd matter, I think the President Trump thing is played out until we get down to election time. I do not appreciate how the Democratic Party is actually trying to use black people as a pawn in this game to the black plight as a pawn to gain votes during this time. Whereas, as someone once said, Joe Biden had nearly 40 years in politics to correct this. Whereas President Trump, so yeah, big up Sister Ivy. Okay, we'll definitely speak on the matter. Thank you for that. I got the text. We'll talk. So yeah, sorry. So we have to kind of look at we have to start using our own mindset in this day and age. So we have to stop allowing these political affiliations to play on our emotions to gain credibility so that they can get in political office to then implement subtle changes that places us in a worse off position. It it happens here in the UK where we always just vote Labour, 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 Labour all day. And when we vote Labour, 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 Labour all day, Labour just gets lazy and just spews some rhetoric when it comes to election time. But then when they get into office, nothing changes. They actually say they're new Labour and their policies are as atrocious or even worse than the Conservatives. So we have to hold people to account, and we can't just give away our votes freely for those of us that vote. We have to start grasping the idea of using your vote tactically to gain what you want politically, so that economically it's reflected back onto the community. This is one of the reasons why I push for Brexit, because there's so many things that were done to displace and break up the Commonwealth and the economics of the Commonwealth, and that was a lot to be blamed on the EU's policies. Now, the Africans and the Caribbeans are back on the rise with some of the fastest growing economies in the world. Someone said this to me yesterday that Singapore and Taiwan are two countries that adopted the Jamaican policies of the 60s and the 70s. And we see where Singapore and Taiwan are now with the policies that they adopted. And yet these policies were Jamaican policies, but yet Jamaica is still in dire straits simply that they were emotionally tricked into during the 80s. So when we're emotionally tricked into things, there's short-term gain, because no one wants to push through the hardship to gain long-term prosperity. And this is why I'm saying we have to set up that gemstone, that beacon that we can look towards. And everyone is going to want to do their own countries. Let's have a race to it. Let's build our own countries if that's the case. Invest in the other countries that you see that there's opportunity as well, because it's all about economics, and allow Africa and the Caribbean to prosper and grow. We have to stamp out crime. We have to it's a shame that crime and violence is so rife in a lot of our countries that we accept that brutality because it's from our own. We have to start stamping out that crime and brutality amongst the self-hate and the self-violence. And when we start stamping these things out, it will make a lot of those countries far more attractive in a lot of sense. Because we have a very little time to do it. I mean, this pandemic, if anything, has shown us one thing. We are not loved in the West. We have no home base. There were so many black folks that in the UK and America, especially in America, that told you that they got turned away from health here. In the UK, black folks are now scared to go to the hospital. And if you aren't scared to go to the hospital, something wrong with you. Every black person that I know, elderly, when you say hospital, they rather run the gauntlet of staying home. Because we all, because they can see it, I can see it. We all can see the time and day that we're in with what's happening. When something is atrocious, whether it's, some people will say it's an act, something that was not real, whether it be real or not. The world saw one of the most heinous crimes committed recently, and yet still on the radio in the UK, you'll have white British presenters still pushing the argument that all lives matter, as if they are oblivious to what the message of Black Lives Matter is saying. You listen to some of these shows, they still push the message that what do these protesters want? There was one caller that called in a calling show, and the lady was explaining that a lot of these statues that have been torn down, they were being torn down because of what they represented. So the presenter started arguing with this caller, saying, should that mean that they should start pulling down all these other people that had to do with some issues against white and other people right now? Stop making it about white people and trying to detract from the issue. Because you had no issue. Up until the point that this incident took place, there was no issue there. If you had a gripe, you would have said it. Every time the black man has a gripe, someone wants to jump on the bandwagon and say, yeah, me too, this to us, and they want to derail what we are pushing to achieve for ourselves. And I mean this in no disrespectful sense, but I mean it in the fact of what it is. In the United States, every single immigrant that comes in, they want to push now for civil rights. They want to push for civil rights. Why? They didn't go through the marches. They weren't in Selma, but they want to gain those rights that we fought for. And I'm not saying they shouldn't have it, but I'm saying when someone doesn't go through the heartfelt pain, when they don't go through the difficulties, let's not discuss them until we finish what we're discussing. If they want to discuss their pain, we'll support them. But don't discuss your pain when we're talking about our pain. We're talking about our pain. You want to jump on it and say, oh, if you want to say you went through pain and you support us because you understand the pain, great. But if you want to say you went through pain and you want your rights now because you went through, you should have said that a long time ago. We'll support you when we have the ability and the time to support you. But right now, we're talking about something a bit more profound. And we have to stop allowing people attempting to derail our programs. Everything that we do, they try to derail it. They try to create some other discussion. Oh, does that Stalin kill? This is what one radio presenter said on the national media. Stalin killed 60 million of his own people. Man, who cares what Stalin did? And how are you going to compare Stalin killing 60 million of his own people to a slave trader as if one has more clout than the other? Even the caller said, what are you saying? And he was defending his statement as if he said nothing wrong. Why are we pandering and asking people to understand our pain? What we need to do is stand firm and let them know that if they don't recognize, then they're going to realize. And it's that simple. See, all these racist guys that turned up into Trafalgar Square and all these places, there was a call that went out. And in a sense, I don't know if it was the wrong or the right call. And I don't know where the breakdown in communication took place. But there was a call canceling the Black Lives Matter protest and said people should allow the far right groups to walk the streets and do their thing that day because they don't need to be a challenge. And then those that didn't get that call went out there and they were in low numbers and they were met by these racist groups, as well as people that were just about their daily business that didn't even know that this march and protest was on, and they were met by these racist factions. And they were placed in the hands of danger. And because of the lower numbers, so in one stroke, someone was attempting to do something to say, you know what, let's stay away from them. Let's not lower ourselves to their animal status. They want us to be like them, animals. Let's just allow them to do their thing. Let's not allow them to derail the conversation. And that was followed, and there was an understanding there. Yet for those that didn't get the message, they were left in a vulnerable position. So we have to start to learn to be a bit more strategic, because we don't want to keep placing those that have that inner zest and drive to feel abandoned in situations or placed in vulnerable places. But yet, even in those lower numbers, they stood firm against those racists and they took them to task. You know, so shout out to the youths, standing firm, stand firm. You know, made me almost drive down to Trafalgar Square that day. I'm being real. You know, stand firm. So these are the things that we have to kind of realize, that they're not trying to understand. And even those that are in that position that always seems so wise in their words, they are just trying to provoke a conversation to gain listening audience or something, to make their shows, whatever the case may be. I don't look at the lives of what it's impacting. Someone can say, aren't you doing the same thing? What I'm doing is highlighting the last week's situations that's been happening. You know, and the producer of the show has an argument, and she's unwilling to put her argument out there. So on her behalf, I'm going to highlight a portion of her argument in terms of this topic here, and the aspect where our fight for realization and recognition and change is being derailed. That's in part largely some 70% due to her. That's with discussions with her. So I give her that credit. I won't take that bit. If it sounded wise, that's from her. She's just unwilling to verbalize it. So I've done it for on her behalf. But also the part what you want to say,
What about? Go
uh,
on.
uh, you she's she there's and I don't want to create a divide. So there's also the take that if you do not understand the
Yeah.
the extremities of how something plays out, you may not be the best spokesperson of those extremities. And what the presenter is highlighting is it's a very delicate area because whilst I do not want to promote division, I have to promote it from a level of that it's overstood. You have people that are of mixed heritage that they feel the plight of what's taking place currently in these scenarios. But in a lot of senses, they live in the best of both worlds because they're able to choose where they sit at certain times. Best of both worlds, and that's fine. We take nothing from them for that. However, where one person sits on the fence, where one person sits on 100% on one side of the fence, on the black side of the fence, they have a harder task than though, in the sense of it is felt that doors are harder to open and they have to go through harder struggles. So it detracts and it takes away from their experience when the door is open for someone that has not gone through the extremities of life's difficulties. But then when the door is open for someone that sits more on the center point, it's treated that, well, this person is there, so it must be acceptable for all. When it's not always necessarily the case, because that person that's sitting there in that image of recognition to say that this is a black representation may not have the full black experience. I don't know if you all understand what I'm saying. So I will not take away from those sitting there because I cannot take away, I do not know how hard they work to actually to be sitting where they are sitting. But also, we have to also grasp the fact that if it was that difficult for you, imagine how difficult it is for someone that is not, as the Americans would say, not brown paper bag, but that black paper bag. You know? Because we know that according to the Americans, the brown paper bags open doors, gets doors open easier. And I'm not saying it in a disrespectful sense, I'm just using their jargons. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, I'm just using the American jargons to kind of emphasize the point. So even within our own family, we have to understand the difficulties and the nuances within our own family so that we can go forward as one. It might be easier for me as a man to make certain things happen than it is for a black woman to make certain things happen, and vice versa. So we have to recognize when it's easier, even on a gender basis. And we have to stop allowing the liberal left to hijack our experience. Now, even I see even the LGBTQ community are now trying to hijack this experience as if sexual orientation and discrimination on sexual orientation is as drastic as discrimination because of your skin tone. One is express choice, and one is overt interpretation of who you are as a person because of how you look. And when I say one is express choice, I'm not taking away from the difficulties that someone might face because of the agenda, but that's express choice. If I walk down the street, I don't have to allow someone to know what my orientation is. That is express choice. Whereas someone can look at me and say, you know what, that's a black man, I don't like him. There's a clear difference, and I refuse to allow or to speak as if I am scared to say, hold your cause, because if your cause is your cause, then fine, hold your cause. But do not try to hijack a cause that has greater underlying emphasis for a people. If you understand the plight and you stand with us, great. And this goes for everyone. If you understand the plight and you stand with us, then great. But don't use it as an advertisement campaign for your plight. When it's your time and you're marching out for whatever reasons you're marching out for, and people say everyone should have the right for whatever, then those who are in support should stand in support at that point with you in your corner. But right now, we know the people that are always trying and attempting to hijack the black plight. And right now, it's not the time. I've seen so many movements in the last 3 decades hijacked because other people hijacked it. So the true message of what was meant to be, that should have been conveyed, weren't conveyed because it was hijacked. And this is exactly what you see now taking place in the media. Everyone's trying to hijack this thing from where it originally started, with at this point, the trigger point at this point, with the kneeling on a black man's neck for almost 10 minutes, killing him. Whether it be real or not, the kneeling on a black man's neck for almost 10 minutes, killing him. I don't want to hear about no one's sexuality. I don't want to hear about anyone's xenophobic thinking. I want to know that black lives, like I said, the Black Lives, if you listen to any of my previous broadcasts, I do not always say Black Lives Matter, but I stand with any black group at the moment with what they're pushing for and the change they're pushing to achieve. All I want to know about now is Black Lives Matter and how we're going to move forward as one within our communities, and what we're going to do to inform that change so we can step out of the hateful shadow that's been casted on us for the last 4.5 generations, 450 years and counting. That's all I want to deal with right now. Stop jumping on the bandwagon. Stop jumping on the bandwagon, because everything has to be unpicked. That's not what it's about. It goes beyond and above that. Like I said, the UK is so subtle. According to the statistics, you're telling me over 20,000 people have died? Or are you saying in those areas where you have a relatively high population of black and white people, more black people die statistically in those little clusters, but across the UK, more white people die? I need to see better statistics. Because if you're telling me that across the UK, it was 4-1, you're telling me over 20,000 black people died in York here. And yet in the black countries that are way inferior to this country, according to you, why is it that not even the whole of Africa ain't got the deaths that the UK has? That means you either was killing people, or you weren't treating them right, or something that I need to understand. Can someone let me know so I can get my head wrapped around it, because I do not understand these figures. Why so much black people dead in England, yet in white countries like the United States, predominantly Brazil, and other countries, the death figures for black people in those countries are extortionate? Why? And yet in Africa, England alone is more than the whole of Africa for black deaths. Why? If the statistics of 20,000 is correct. I just need to understand. If you know a bit better than me, please, let's not just leave it where we're angry. Help me to grasp it and understand it. 0753 996 8143. I'll give it again. 0753 996 8143. It's the doctor's surgery. You know how we do each and every Tuesday. We bring you we bring you an active topic debate on Britain's current affairs, the world's current affairs that impact on us as a people. Britain's first Black current affairs show, and we're dealing with a current affair issue of this disproportionate and inappropriate treatment of Black folks and how it's impacting us in every quarters. I would love to see, now this is going to sound like a Martin Luther King speech kind of thing. I would love to see the day where the show is just talking about positive things in terms of current affairs on economic growth and prosperity. But at the moment, every week over the last 6 months of doing the show, we're unpicking nuances that are subjugating us to subtle racial cues and racial bias and bigotry. And that's right across the news media, from the BBC to LBC to Sky News to all of them. Text message reads, if anyone can get access to church halls, we can, no. What is? Just like okay, if anyone can get access to church halls, we can meet 2 or 3 evenings per week. Who's this text message from? 841. Give me a bit more insight, text 841. I don't want to just read that out. I need to understand who I'm propagating this information for. I understand what you mean. You're doing something for us. You want to meet up 2 or 3 evenings per week, create a community discussion point. You know, that's fine, but it's a bit vague. I'd love to have more insight onto that, even if you say, and you know what I mean, that would be that kind of better clarity, you know. But you know, I'm hypersensitive right now, you know, towards everything. But this is my current gripe, and it don't mean that we're in a country where every white person hates us. That would be ridiculous. Like I said, thank you to all the white people that have been a part of this historic moment. You know, because it's the first time you've seen. This is the second time. They say it's the first time that we've seen white and black people together. This is the second time. I remember with Mark Duggan, the white roadman that was out there as well, organized and clapping and licking things down and everything as well. I saw that with my own eyes. Not to say I was out there, but I did see it. Yeah, with my own eyes. Yeah, they were out there with it in the mix. And that was the first time. This is the second time, and the first time the news, the media has recognized it as such. So all the people them that stand firm with right, I'm not talking about just because of skin color. You stand firm with what's right, what and common decency, and recognizing the emotional pain and distress to others. You know, those are the people that will stop when they see a distressed person on the street side and help them, not because of whatever reason, just because they are decent human beings. You know, we give thanks to all those people who are decent human beings out there, not the ones that say they are, but are underhanded in their subtle racist cues and their subtle bigotry. We see you more and more every day. You know, we recognizing you more and more every day. Bigotry will not be continue to rise. Okay, just wanted to say that. So for those that are a part of it, and for those young black folks out there, you know, carry on, man. You lot are doing us proud. I'm saying that without any reservations. You young black folks are doing us proud. So much so, in my time, a lot of the youths, a lot of them didn't have the heart. And it's good to see now the majority has the heart, not the minority. You know, there was only a few back in the day, but now it seems like majority, like this generation is a generation of young warriors. Keep that momentum going, and do it in the right way. We're not supporting anarchy, but we're going to support change, positive change. It's good. It'll be good to hear a united voice. It'll be very good to hear a united voice. Everyone wants to take the mantelpiece. I'm keen to see who will have that voice, because I just want to hear a united voice. I'm listening, because heavy is the head that wears the crown. And it's a burden. So for all those who want to be that, heavy is the head. So for anyone that wants to do that, it'd be good to be able to unite the young youths in this country to speak the language. And with this Black Lives Matter, whoever is the organizers, all these multiple organizers, keep doing what you're doing, even though it's a bit chaotic right together, because it's still achieving a lot. And according to the government yesterday, they said they've opened a review into the policies. So I'm hoping that there is some positivity that comes back from that with a review with the police. Like I said, I really don't trust the Met Commissioner. I really think she hates men, especially, and when you hate man, you might even, you hate black man worse, because black man is the epiphany of masculinity. So, what falls off her head falls on shoulders. Her attitude is like it spews over into the streets, and the way they treat young black boys on the streets, we know how they do, and then we know with the successful black couples how they go after them. Even black couples that are far removed from criminality, we see how they go after them. So they just want to hear a name mentioned for a successful black person for them to go in and destroy their lives. Are there any law firms out there that are suing the police for enough money? That whenever these things take place, all these things are needed. If you are a law firm out there and you can take on these cases and correct the wrongs that the police are doing to these prominent black folks, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to interview you so that we can start having that common access point. You know what I mean? And on that front, as long as you're doing the best job, you don't have to be black. As long as you're winning the cases. You know what I mean? We just want people that are going to be doing the job correctly to make sure that the wrongs are righted. Because it's happening too much. And we keep brushing it aside. We are so, what's the word?
Nonchalant.
I think it happens when something happens so much that you just start to brush it aside. You're not immune. We're so, it's nonchalant in terms of our attitude towards it, but it's because it happens so much we feel that there's nothing we can do about it. We need to stop it completely. And I think as a global movement, wherever it's found that a police officer has falsely arrested and imprisoned, there should be heavy sentences and heavy punishment for police officers that falsely arrest and destroy black lives. Any life, as a matter of fact. But right now, black life we are dealing with, because there's such a targeted effort towards us. There should be heavy. So we know that when they come in right. If you've done something wrong and them come and they had reasonable, then I understand. But in so many senses, there's no reasonable. They just come at you. And these are the things that we need to start correcting. Or we get out of this country. There's no what they say. There's no two ways about it. It's one way or the other way. That's two ways, isn't it? You know what I mean? We have to do something. There's no in that sense. There needs to be action. We need to stop ignoring it. Stop ignoring it. We're going to take a pause for the cause. It's the doctor's surgery. Catch us back on the other side where we do the final hour. I'd love to hear from some of you guys. You're making me rant too much today. I don't like the ranting. I'd love to hear your view. Your views are important. They're the most essential part of the shows. Your views and your phone calls, they keep me going, you know. So give us a call when we come back after the break. We're going to take a pause for the cause to pay some bills. All right. So I'll catch you back on the other side. But for now, take care. We'll catch you back on the other side.